Well, one of my all-time favorite artists is Billy Joel, and I've gotten to see him a couple times. I went to the Elton John, Billy Joel tour where they were together, pianos face to face, and it was one of the greatest concerts that I've ever been to. Obviously, you all know Piano Man. Sig, do you know any Piano Man, by the way?
I think maybe a little bit.
Yeah, he does. All right, good. See, he's so good. And now you guys can all do the la 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 la. Well, here's a cool fact about Billy Joel. Whenever he performs, he doesn't sell the front 2 rows at his concert. He leaves them empty on purpose. And the reason he leaves them empty is because he got so sick of performing for people that bought the front row tickets because he called them the gold chain guys. They just wear gold chains, they smoke cigars, they didn't even care. They're just kind of like, dance for me, Piano Man. And he got so sick of performing for them that he decided he was no longer going to sell the first 2 rows of the concert. And so what he would do is he would have some of his team go all the way back to the end of the arena and then find people at the back of the church, at the back of the arena. We don't have that problem in the Catholic Church, right? He would find people in the back of the arena and then bring them up to the front. And he discovered that those were the best fans. And he said after he started doing that at his concerts, there was a whole new life and a whole new vigor. And he just found it to be so great. So even till this day, anytime he does a concert, he leaves the front 2 rows and he brings people from the back. Sounds pretty close to the gospel, doesn't it? So Jesus says, when you go out to a party or to a dinner place, take the lowest seat. He says, if you humble yourself, you'll be exalted. So now I just gave you the key. Next time you go to a Billy Joel concert, just pay for the cheap tickets in the back, and you get to go in the front. So he says to us that we should take the lowest seat and that he will exalt us. So I want to talk today a little bit about humility and how that is. I would say it's a spiritual physics. So with physics, things work just the way that they work, even if you don't understand them. Nature has a way of working in a certain way. Well, it's true with the spiritual life, too. There's a spiritual physics. So there's something about humility that even if we don't understand it and we just take the lower place, God's going to exalt us. He's going to delight in us. And if we don't do that, we're going to experience humility. And I'll give you one example of that. I was a newly ordained priest, and it was my first retreat. I was leading a couples retreat, and I was running late to the dinner. And so when I got to the dinner, I figured everybody's going to be eating, and I'm late, so I'm just going to go grab my food real quick and try to sneak down at one of the tables and join in. So I go to the line where the food is. I start making my plate, and I feel like an awkward, silence. And I look around, and nobody else had gotten their food yet. They were waiting for me to come and say grace. And so there I was first, and I got humbled. I think about high school. When I was younger, there used to be this thing when you drove, so if there were a bunch of guys or kids or whatever, and you're driving the car, somebody would call shotgun. And that would mean that you would get to sit in the front seat next to the driver. And I never liked that because, first of all, I would always forget to call shotgun. And secondly, I didn't like that, vying for the front seat. And so in our practical lives, we're called to take the back seat, to give somebody else the front seat. And that could just be a simple example when you drive home from church today. But in every way of life, if you can think about that, take the back seat and let somebody else take the front seat. And again, there's a spiritual physics to that when we do that, we're going to find favor with God. So here in the first reading from the book of Sirach, my child, conduct your affairs with humility. So everything that we do in life, conduct it with humility. And then he says, you will be loved more than a giver of gifts. Humble yourself the more, the greater you are, and you will find favor with God. Don't we all desire that? Just to be favored by God, to be loved by God, to have God look at us with delight. That's what happens when we humble ourselves. That's the spiritual physics. When we humble ourselves, God will exalt us. But if we exalt ourselves, we're going to be humbled or embarrassed in some way. And so as you go forward in this week, I just think that'd be great to think about that in your life. What are some practical ways that you can take the back seat? What are some practical ways that we can humble ourselves and put others first? And then Jesus says that when you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your neighbors, your relatives or the wealthy, in case they might repay you back. He says, rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the life. So whenever we're about our lives or about our work or about family or about sports or about anything that we may be involved in, always try to think of somebody that is left out, of somebody that is poor, of somebody that can never repay you for the goodness that you do to them. And just like Billy Joel, take them from the last seat and invite them to the front seat of your lives. When we do this, we will find favor with God. We have our ultimate role in Jesus, who is God, humbled himself and took the form of a man so that he could be with us and so that he could show us what it means to love God and to be God's servant, to give our whole lives so that other people may live. So now you got it. If you want tickets to a Billy Joel concert, you want to sit in the front row, buy the worst tickets you can. Humble ourselves this week. Try to take the back seat, let somebody else ride shotgun, and do anything that we can to take the lowest position, and whatever it may be, to let other people go first. And we will find, if we do that, that we will discover favor with God. It's a spiritual physics. It's just how God works. And he desires to reveal to us this wonderful gift of humility.